Hi everyone, welcome to the second of today's CPD, lunchtime CPDs on IStructE membership. So last week we covered routes to chartership. So the presentation was recorded and the slides have been issued out on email to the branch email list. So today we're going to cover the process of applying for fellowship. So maybe some of you are mentoring graduates on their routes to chartership. So those resources are all there and available for you. Last week I mentioned that these CPDs have come about because of our recent IStructE survey. Dr. Una Began, our chairperson, had put that survey together. So thanks a million for all your responses. We really appreciate it. So one of the responses was you were looking for a talk on how you would apply for fellowship. So that's where we're bringing you that talk today. As I mentioned earlier, we're recording this, so it'll be available for your future access. All the recordings we do are on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it before, it's IStructE Ireland. So we've got our past lectures that people have agreed to have been recorded there. So I think they're there from the last 2 years. So if there's any CPD hours you need to make up, you'll be able to look over some past lectures there for you. But as I said, last week's and this week's CPD, lunchtime CPDs are available there. So we're delighted today to have Rebecca Carey. She's the head of membership and education at IStructE headquarters, and she's going to give the formal talk about the application process for fellowship. And then we're going to follow with Dr. Una Began. She has been recently made fellow, so she's going to give her insight on the process too after Rebecca's talk. So Rebecca, I'll let you take it away. Thanks a million for agreeing to do today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me again. Right, let me share my screen. Hopefully. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
Good. Right. Right, okay, so I'm going to go through the requirements for fellowship today, what the process is, what you need to be aware of before you apply. If you've got any questions, we've got time at the end, and I believe Una's also going to talk about her experience of going through this process recently as well. So you'll get some really helpful first-hand feedback there as well. But if you don't want to ask any questions, please feel free to email me directly. I've got my email at the end of these slides. And I will also be sharing them with Nuala so she can put them up or email them out to people so you've got them as reference in future. So looking at what fellowship is all about, FIStructE is the highest grade of membership that we have at the institution, and it's awarded to our members who have demonstrated a significant individual responsibility, sustained achievement and level of professionalism during their career. And it shows that you've earned the recognition by your peers by achieving that higher level of operating and sustained consistent performance at that level. Some of the benefits that you get from fellowship, obviously you continue to have access to all of the benefits that you have as a chartered member of the institution. What you get from fellowship is perhaps a little less tangible in terms of those benefits, but it demonstrates that you have an ability to share your professional experience with others. So fellows are regarded as leaders in their profession and demonstrates a sustained level of commitment that you have in either developing new technologies, meeting new environmental challenges, doing work to enhance the scope or the visibility of the profession, so promoting the profession, or encouraging and inspiring younger structural engineers. It also would give increased visibility, so your name as a fellow would be highlighted in the members directory, and you get to use the FIStructE designation, and we'll also invite you along to a certificate ceremony to be presented with your certificate. If you can't get to the certificate ceremony that we hold in London, then your regional group will do a certificate ceremony, so that's a good sort of networking opportunity and a good way to celebrate that achievement. Fellowship can also improve the status of your organisation because you would be associated with that organisation, and it's good to have fellows associated there, so it shows that they're employing professionals of the highest quality. So as I said, some intangible benefits there, but I hope you see them as benefits nonetheless. So in order to qualify for fellowship, you need to demonstrate a few different qualities and attributes. So this is where it goes above and beyond what we look for in people when they become chartered members. So we need to see that you are engaged in the profession of structural engineering. We need to see that you have at least 5 years working in a senior position. And obviously you need to have satisfied the IStructE's chartered membership professional review requirements. So that means you would hold either chartered member status, which is MIStructE or AIStructE, not to be confused with IStructE. They are quite different grades. And I assume that most of you on this call are MIStructE anyway. So the application itself, I've put here the application form is either online or PDF. I don't actually think we have the PDF version on the website anymore. So it will be the online form, which is, in my opinion, easier to use anyway. So hopefully that will be fine for you as well. So when you complete that form, you'll be asked to upload several bits of information or evidence to it. So the first thing will be a comprehensive statement of around about 1,000 to 1,500 words. And in that statement, you need to talk about 5 significant achievements. And I'll go on in a moment to talk a bit more about what should be within that statement. In addition to the statement, you need to supply evidence of CPD for the past 5 years. So you can submit your annual CPD returns that you provide to the institution, or that you should provide to the institution every year, or we can accept other formats, but we would need to see it in a sort of a one for every year kind of format. We need a comprehensive CV from you. And we need an organisational chart that shows where you sit within your company, and who your direct reports are, and an overview of the structure and things like that. The final thing you will need to have for your application is 2 supporters, and they must be fellows. So one of them must be FIStructE, and the second supporter can be from another professional engineering institution. If you're not sure whether your second supporter is eligible to act in that capacity, please drop us a line in the membership inbox and we can advise you that they're eligible or not. You should also be aware that we ask your supporters to fill in a questionnaire in respect of your application. So when you're finding people to act in this capacity, please give them a heads up that they'll expect to be contacted by the institution, and that we'll ask them to complete this supporter questionnaire. Obviously, the quicker they can do that, the quicker we can get your application through for the final part of the assessment. So if you can give them a bit of a nudge as well, that will probably be helpful to speed up your application. Then finally, the application fee for fellowship is currently £105, and that will be taken as part of the online application process when you sign up. So looking now at the comprehensive statement, this is where you need to provide about 1,000 to 1,500 words that show your 5 most significant achievements. And these achievements need to highlight where you feel that you have excelled in your professional life. And they can demonstrate things like your level of leadership or seniority within your position or within a specific project team that you've been working in. It can demonstrate a significant commitment and contribution to the development of structural engineering, and also your personal responsibility for projects and staff. So this statement needs to be personal and positive. So I know it's quite difficult to do when everyone's very much used to working in teams and being quite modest, but you need to make sure you're writing it in the first person and talking about your own achievements. So the reviewers are only interested in what you have done. So please try not to include generic statements about your company or what the company's achieved, because that would just be eating into the word count of your statement. It might be useful for you to put a very small amount of almost background information just to set the scene for your statement, but make sure that doesn't take up too much of your word count that you've got available. So looking now at what we mean by significant contributions. So this list here shows the different ways that you could demonstrate that significant contribution. It could be showing the way your seniority has increased in different projects that you've been working on and your significant personal involvement in those projects. You could have had a significant role as part of a design, as a designer for a major project. You could have been involved in significantly complex or innovative techniques. It could look at your personal contribution to research in structural engineering and even the teaching of structural engineering. So, for example, you might be a guest lecturer at a university or something like that. That's all useful to put in there. Could also look at any involvement you have about the promotion of structural engineering, either through the IStructE or a similar body. So if you are involved in the regional group committee, that sort of work demonstrates how you contribute to the fellowship criteria. Also, leadership skills are very important for fellowship. So again, think about projects that you've worked on where you've needed to demonstrate those leadership skills and how your contribution there aided the overall outcome of the project. And then also looking at if you've been involved or had a leading role in the conception and development of new systems or techniques that have advanced structural engineering. So these are really just some starting points there, and hopefully it pitches fellowship at a level for you so you can understand the type of information we'd be looking for. This list is not exhaustive, so there could be many, many other things that you are doing that demonstrates that you're working at fellowship level. The assessment itself, once you've submitted your application form and the associated documents, is carried out by our application and professional review panel. This is a group of volunteers who meet 4 times a year. We've got a variety of backgrounds on that panel. So they will look at your application, look through every single document you've provided for evidence that you're meeting those criteria for fellowship. At that point, they will either recommend that you should be elected to fellowship by the membership committee, which means that your application will be put to the next membership committee for election, which is usually within a few weeks of the ANPR meeting. One of the other things they can recommend, rather than an outright rejection, is an interview. So usually an interview is required if the ANPR reviewers can see that there's some good stuff in your application, but perhaps there's just not sufficient detail there. So this is almost the benefit of the doubt option. So if they can see that there is something there, but it's not quite been explained as fully as they might need, then they'll invite you to attend an interview, which is where that detail will be drawn out by your reviewers. So it will be conducted by 2 fellows of the institution, and it will usually be people from your own regional group. But now that we are less wed to face-to-face interviews, if we're unable to find available fellows, then we might find people from a different regional group to carry that out for you. The interview will start with you being asked to give a 15-minute presentation based on your experience, and then there'll be a discussion of your application, which is usually about 45 minutes to an hour long. After that, the reviewers will provide a recommendation to the panel. So at the end of the interview, they won't be able to discuss the outcome with you. It just then gets referred back to the application and professional review panel for final decision. if you are not quite sure whether you are ready to apply for fellowship, you can submit a preliminary application. There's no charge for this, and there's no obligation once you've submitted this. If you change your mind, you don't have to apply for anything. But it could just be a good way of giving you a bit of reassurance that you're on the right track with it. So for this sort of preliminary review, you need to send us a partially completed version of the PDF application form. You don't need to put your supporters on it at that point. And we'll need to see your CPD for the last 5 years, and your CV and your org chart that shows where you sit within your company, as you would in the full application. So this will be reviewed by the application and professional review panel as well. So it would be the same people that actually make the final decision on fellowship applications, and they will advise you whether they think now is the right time, or they might give some guidance as to some additional experience you might want to get under your belt before you apply for fellowship, or they might just highlight areas where you could put some additional information in that really draws out where you meet the fellowship criteria. You should be aware that even if you submit a preliminary application, that doesn't necessarily guarantee a successful outcome when you put your fellowship application in. So you still need to make sure that when you're writing your statement and the information that you provide, you really are telling the story of how you meet those fellowship requirements. And then finally, we do have another route to fellowship, which is if you are currently a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers, as well as being an MIStructE or an AIStructE, we have a slightly shortened route for you. So we still need you to submit the application form with your supporters, but the additional evidence you supply is shorter. So you need to do a 500 to 1,000 word report about your contribution to structural engineering specifically and your commitment to CPD. So this replaces the 1,000 to 1,500 word statement of your 5 greatest achievements. We do still need a detailed CV from you. And then the other things we need are proof of your fellowship with the civils. So we need a copy of your fellowship certificate. Please don't send us the original one. And a letter from the ICE stating that you are a fellow of good standing, which basically means that you're active and that your subscriptions are paid, and that you followed the standard route to fellowship. So other than that, to say, does anyone have any questions, or here are my email details if you want to get in touch with anything specific. So let me work out how to stop sharing. There we go. Does anyone have any questions right now?
Rebecca, hi. I have a question here. Ronan Stokes from Punch Consulting Engineers. Would it be fair to say that you sort of recommend the preliminary application, Rebecca, as part of the, rather than just put in a full application? Is it better to get a preliminary application assessed?
I think it's a very personal thing. We don't actually get many preliminary applications through, so it seems to me that the majority of people seem fairly confident when they're applying that they've met the criteria. It is entirely up to you. If you would like that reassurance of someone having read through it and saying, yeah, we think this looks okay, then by all means do it, but it's absolutely not a requirement. It's just up to you if you want that.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks for that.
Rebecca, can I just ask, in terms of the personal statement, the significant achievements, is there any sort of guidance on time limiting those personal achievements? Do they need to be in the recent past or not?
No, we don't have any specific time limit on it. I think you'd have to, that might be something, if there's something you've worked on that was quite a while ago, then perhaps that would be where you might want to drop me an email about it, and I can ask the reviewers whether they have any strong views on it. We don't specifically say a time frame, but if it was you were working at that level and then since then you haven't been, that might not be looked upon as favourably by the reviewers.
Yeah, no, it's not really that. It's sort of, as long as it's of significant value to structural engineering, you can go back a bit if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering, how important is it, your level within the organization? I see, you know, the company organizational chart or whatever is important. How important is it that you're, you know, right at the top, or in large organizations, you're maybe not there?
It's not really. It is all based on what you are able to demonstrate in terms of your level of leadership and your contribution, because you could find there are larger companies where, you know, job titles don't necessarily equate to the level of seniority that you would have within that larger organization, and the same or the opposite could apply for smaller organizations. So it doesn't have to be the absolute top of the tree people. It looks at what you actually have done within that role and the significant contribution that you have made to projects within that role.
Okay, that's great. And is there any particular time limit from achieving FIStructE or IStructE? Is there any kind of time limit that needs to pass before you're eligible?
No, it just, you need to have been working in a senior position for about 5 years or more. But there's no time served element since you achieved chartered membership.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
If there aren't any more questions right now, I wonder if Una, would you want to talk about how you found this process?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everybody, and thanks very much for joining us today at lunchtime. And I appreciate Nuala organising this for us. I was just going to say a few words about my experience of fellowship, I suppose, and I think we're in a safe space, so I don't mind saying this. But I think I started my application at least 10 years ago. I started drafting out when I was in industry about all this excellent experience I had. And I printed it out and it went into a folder in my filing cabinet at home until last year when I got back around to doing it. So the first thing I would say to you is, having seen kind of the work it takes, it really doesn't take that much work, and I would really encourage you to go for it and not to wait back. But because I was working in industry, I thought I'd apply for it, and then I ended up in academia, and I sort of thought, you know, that was a bit of a disadvantage, that it would obviously be, you know, more focused on individuals who are actually designing buildings every day. And then I started a PhD, and I thought, well, I'll leave it until I've got that done, because then I'll have something to talk about. But really, I would encourage you not to hang back. I think when you look at what's required, it's not that difficult. Not that difficult to apply. I had a look at what my 5 things were, just in thought, in case that would be of any benefit to anyone. And I suppose I was really conscious of the fact that I haven't been working in industry for about 9 years now. So the 5 parts I took were, the first one was about my institution involvement. I had a lot of involvement in the Young Members Group when it started up about 20 years ago when I was in London. So I talked a bit about that. I did talk about work I did in engineering consultancy and also about managing teams of people. Then I talked a little bit about program design in academia, where we reanalyzed one of our programs for design studios and professional skills. So I spoke about that. And my 4th one was about taking a lead in EDI in the university. So I just thought that was a topic to show sort of leadership in that area. And then my final one was about my PhD, which is specifically in engineering education. So I brought in those 5 different aspects rather than just describing 5 different buildings that I had been working on. And just really to finish by saying, I did go with the preliminary report and submitted that and got some feedback on that, which I thought was helpful. They asked me to bring out certain aspects of it more clearly, which I did. But really, I suppose the big thing is, like, 1,500 words is only, let me see, I had pictures and everything in this, but it's only 4 or 5 pages of writing. it's not very much. You'll actually probably have more difficulty in cutting down your submission than thinking of things to write about. So just to say, I'd really encourage you to go for it. And if anybody would like a copy of mine, I'd be very happy to send it to you. Just drop me an email if it's of any use to you. So thanks very much. Oh, one final thing was, if you have difficulty in finding fellows to support your application, just give me, drop me an email as well, because we have fellows that are involved in the local group that you may know, and they may be able to sign off on some of your experience if you've met them in the past. So get in touch if you have difficulty trying to find fellows. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Una. That's great. Just to get an insight on what you need to do and how to possibly think about those 5 achievements. Yeah, there were 5 very different ones, as you say. So people probably have very different ones that are just working in industry. I have the problem that I was in industry like you and recently changed education. So yeah, I can see how I should have applied a bit earlier. But yeah, there's lots of food for thought there, to be honest, from your talk, Rebecca, and from what you said, Una. Is there any final questions? If there isn't, we'll leave it there. And as I said, we'll send around the slides probably by the end of the week to the email addresses, and we'll put the recording up on YouTube under IStructE Ireland. Okay. Thanks a million, Rebecca and Una, for your input. All right.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.